What I'm going to do right now is I have a few more questions, but what I'd like to do is kind of get it out in case anyone has to leave early and would like to ask the panel a question. So why don't we take some questions from the audience, if you have any? Hello? You're so.
Some of you mentioned that.
You're going to have to speak up just a little bit more.
Some of you mentioned that your career before you started your current jobs were not in, web technologies, but now you're in a web company. How did you find that transition?
Anyone in particular, would you like to answer that, or?
I've always been in web.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can answer that because I came from a different industry, completely different industry. It's been a huge learning curve, but it's been fantastic because you get support from people in the community, the startup community, other women, and then also people in your company want to help you learn. They hired me because I brought in something different. I was bringing in a B2B background, B2C background, huge budgets, but then small budgets, and then I worked for another startup company, which was completely opposite. It was a candy company, just some but have all been good in bringing something different to the company, because everybody in the company has a tech background, I think, except for me, maybe. But it's been fun. It's been, I get to be on this panel. I was telling Leslie, I really am not qualified to be a part of this panel because this is my first tech job. But, I've just found it because they wanted someone from the outside to come in for this position. So.
I think politicians can be on a panel, you can be Stephanie. So.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I think better job, actually.
And I think it can be a tremendous advantage. Of course, it depends on what your role is, but my role is translating the technology to our users and vice versa. And so the fact that I didn't come from this background, but I've really gone out of my way to learn about it on a lot of different levels. And we were such a small company for a while that I was literally sitting next to the developers as they were experiencing what they were experiencing. And so it enabled, but the fact that I didn't come from that really enabled me to translate it. So when we're having issues or when I'm trying to explain why things work the way that they worked for any of our either consumers or artists or anyone, I feel that the fact that I've had to learn it myself makes me a lot more effective at explaining it to them and gives me a lot more empathy and compassion for what they're going through. And then vice versa, I'm able to translate that back to our technical team as well. So I think in some cases it can definitely be an advantage.
I have a background in psychology. And so when you look at psychology in tech and consumer-facing companies, psychology is all about introducing like a stimulus and getting someone to react on the stimulus and seeing what their behavior patterns are, measuring that. That's tech, that's conversion funnels. And so it's actually been really, really helpful to me not coming from a tech background and having a learning curve into tech. I'm really able to pull from that, and I come with a different lens, so it's been really helpful.
Is that good?
Follow up on that with the conversion and going back to the traffic, Twitter versus Facebook. Do you guys track not just traffic, but how that traffic converts? And maybe talk a little bit about how you measure that using Google Analytics. Is there Omniture or other things you might be using to track traffic into actual conversion?
Everyone hear that? Just how do you track your, okay.
So we're really geeky. Like, I love geeking out on our metrics and our statistics. We're actually building a proprietary dashboard based on like all the things I want to look at, which is, great for me, but for Kevin, I'm like, Kevin, I want this fun like toy, please build it for me. But right now we've been using Google Analytics. They have a lot of really great things that you can plug into it and look at it. We also have, in the short term, Kevin built me a reporting system, so every single night at midnight, I can see like who's logged in, how long they spent, like all the little data points that I want to look at, and I look at that every single night to see where our conversions are and where people are coming from, all that great stuff. So
we're uber analytic geeks. We use Google Analytics. If you have not read The Lean Startup, I highly recommend it. It helped us move from tracking vanity metrics, which is considered like what are your visits, to valuation metrics. So we've completely changed our reporting. So we're able to say that last month, 40% of the craft beer businesses in San Diego were actually engaged with our product. We're actually able to say that last month, 50% or more of the people who were using our app last month were using it 10 or more times. And I mean, those are the sorts of stats that investors are looking for too. So yeah, be analytic geeks all the way.
We use Google Analytics as well. Our conversion, though, is to sign up developers. So it's not just visiting our website or going on Facebook or Twitter. We need to find developers. They need to sign up with us so that we can bring them into our network. But we do use Google Analytics because if we could drive those developers to our website to learn about our product and then fill out the form of what they're interested in and what their software is, then that's our conversion right there.
Yeah, we use Google Analytics as well, and I think one of the disciplines is not getting too caught up in it, especially if you're just fascinated by all the different, you have so many tracking codes on everything, and when you're a multi-platform product, it's so much to look at. And again, our conversions, or at least from what I do from an artist services standpoint, is really how many artists are using our product. And so those are the analytics that I pay most attention to, not just in terms of converting them on us, but how is our product benefiting them? So how many RSVPs equal clicks on buy ticket links? How many shares do people then send to their Twitter account? And then how does that end up with buy ticket links? So everything is really about how are we being most effective for our artists, which are, I guess, our clients, for lack of a better word. And so those are really the metrics that I pay attention to. And I use a combination of Google Analytics, I should say, and Excel, both.
Good question.
Right here in the front.
I had a question for the founders. So how long between when you had a viable product that consumers could use to now do you feel that it took to get some traction and sort of for you to feel comfortable that, okay, things are moving in the right direction? And then the second thing is, were there specific strategies or tactics that you used, like something big that happened to get you to that point, or was there a lot of different things that added up to it?
Anyone in particular you'd like to?
I think the two founders, yeah.
So I would say the first thing that your first data point, so January 2010, when I said I'm going to do this full steam ahead, I put up a website, built it myself, put up a way for people to sign up for email. If people were signing up, then I was like, okay, I'm onto something, and they're not my friends. My friends are friends.
It's not my mom, not my dad.
Exactly.
A true story.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, this is great. And then people were engaging with the content, and then they were emailing me, and I was like, okay, so there is something there. I started doing research, and from there on, built a minimum viable product, and you get that out, you start measuring. So, but I mean, the very minimum thing was a basic website, give me your email, and that's it.
Yeah, same with us. So we, the first version of our site was on WordPress. Today it's written in Python on the Django framework, hosted in Google App Engine. So we launched on WordPress, that's all we had, and through Twitter. Both of us were already pretty social savvy and had a following, and so we measured the response of people about the idea for a few months. Thought, wow, we're onto something. And then we launched our iPhone app in September, so April, March, June, July, August, 6 months later. And that's when things really started proving itself, because it's a viral experience to share what you were doing and telling your friend about the app. Then viable product, I mean, it hasn't really been until the last 6 months have we really had a viable product, and my other partner in crime just joined us full time a few months ago. So it's been a journey for sure. It was not a sprint. I mean, he just left his job of 12 years, so it was step by step. What were your other questions?
Was there like a strategy or a tactic, it sounds like for you, maybe harnessing your followers that you already had, and something that pushed you over the edge to sort of get critical mass, or was it just a slow burn that you started adding people every month slowly and surely?
I think it was the iPhone app for us. Yeah. Pushing out the iPhone app, then the Android app this time last year. And then once we saw that the Android app was being heavily adopted, we knew that there was something going on. we pounded pavement for a while and got out and talked to people. That was a big part of it, not hiding behind our screens and email. We've had a lot of defining moments with face-to-face conversation that really just kind of clarified, like, okay, this is what we're doing.
May I speak to that as well? Even though I'm not a founder, I was a part of a company. So they were founded in 2007, and I joined in 2009. And in 2010, we had a pivot and went from actually mid-2010, and we went from 50,000 registered users to 1 million registered users in like a year. So I have experienced that kind of moment of when you are able to be nimble enough to recognize that what you're doing may not be the best path, and really pay attention to what opportunities may lie, and then have a team that's willing to just take a bet and move in another direction. And that really worked for us.
That's a good answer.
So speaking of taking bets, you know, starting a startup is hard and scary, right? There's a lot of work to do and you just don't know what's going to happen. So I want to ask all of you, what are your philosophies on risk, and you know, what was your train of thought as you were doing this and just having that faith?
I think, like, when I was driving here today, I just was thinking, find people who also will give you honest feedback that aren't your friends and family. Because your friends and family are always going to tell you what you want to hear. And it wasn't until I had an amazing business coach that gave me a lot of tough love that sat me down and said, you're being too conservative, you could have been more aggressive here. And so that's been super eye-opening. And then, like, the financial part of it, I think kind of as ladies, you're like, you know, you want to make sure that everything's in place and you're kind of tiptoeing around. And I mean, I've told people, like, get a business line of credit, get the credit card, just start, just do it. Forget the business plan. Like, you have to just kind of create some initial inertia. I'm not going to lie, it's scary, you know. Like, at the end of the day, for those who may not totally have left your job yet.
But it's movement, it's action.
Yes.
It's, you know,
put up the, what's it called? Launch rock. If you have an idea, go home tonight, sign up for a Launch Rock account, put up your page, tweet and Facebook your idea, and see how many email opt-ins you get.
Yeah, I think you have to do some testing first, because it is risk, and I mean, it consumes you. And as the founder, like, you're up at night, it's like 3 in the morning, you're thinking about all these things, you have your operations stuff, you have your team stuff, you have your product stuff, you have everything, and at the end of the day, you're left with yourself. And there is a lot of risk that goes into it, and it's not just your risk, but then you're bringing on team members. And so I have 2 other people, we're adding another 2 by the end of February. So it's not just my risk, it's like I have this amazing team of people that I'm grateful for every single day, my advisors, my mentors, and so now it's their risk as well, and so I'm responsible for that too. And so, but it's hard. You have to have it in your DNA though. Like, you have to be super passionate about what you're doing. One of my mentors said, like, if you wouldn't do what you're doing for the next 10 years of your life, unpaid, don't do it. Because you just have to love it that much. But at the same time, like, do your testing, be smart about it, do your research, go after a huge market, because if you're gonna work for hours on end, you better have like a $30 billion market, because you can get at least 1% of that strategically, then you'll be good. But if you're gonna go after a small market and still put in all those hours and time, it doesn't really make sense. So I think you just do some testing, be passionate, but take risk, there is risk, but it's fun.
It can be scary though. Yeah. I mean, I just have to be honest here, because it's a ton of risk depending on how deep you go. Like, when you put everything on the line, and especially if you're not a founder and you're trusting founders, I was completely, from the day that I decided to join the company that I joined, and the day that I decided to follow them to San Diego without even a contract, or I don't think I had a paycheck at that point, I don't remember. But I really trusted their vision, I trusted their ability to lead the company. I just knew somewhere in my gut that this was the right thing to be doing, and it was literally that gut feeling that kept me going. At times it felt like, you know, you swim across a pool and try not to come up for air and all you want to do is get to the other side. That's sometimes how it felt. But it's amazing to get to the other side and see what you've built. When you see, you know, your favorite band, like I see my favorite band is using our products, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And I see, you know, you get feedback and everything. So it is worth it, but it is scary. And I think that each one of us probably, I'm sure it's the same for them, and all of you that are also involved in this stuff, come up with strategies in order to deal with that, because you can't let the fear and you can't let the intensity or the stress overcome your day-to-day, because you have to function, you have a company to run, you have to be there for people. And so for me, it's a combination of yoga and I'm a dancer, and just like my own techniques for knowing how to deal and be functional in all of this. And I think that I'm sure each of them also have tools, but knowing what your tools are really important.
What I have a problem with, like, I'll be thinking of the business while I'm sleeping, and I'll sit up in bed and go, oh my God, that's great. And then I'll run to my office and get on my iMac and just start doing it. And I mean, it sounds a little crazy, but I'm like, it happens all the time. And you can't stop, it's your baby sometimes, it's, or something you if you're not passionate about it, you know, do something else. Because if you're not willing to do the risk, if you're not willing to do that, there's going to be sleepless nights, but I mean, in the end, there's no feeling like it when you get past your first your first win, and then your second win, and then it keeps getting better. So, more questions?
So this is mostly for the founders, but if you guys have insight, that's great. What is one thing that you have learned that you wish you could tell yourself on day one that really changed the way you did things, or helped you accelerate, or you would have avoided a mistake? You know, one thing you could tell yourself if you had to do it over that would have really changed the way you did things.
Getting a CPA, outsourcing your payroll, LegalZoom works to a certain point, find an attorney. Oh my God, I hung on to that stuff, and it was just silly. It held me back. Like, you have to figure out how to let go of that stuff quickly. So, you know, just getting your advisors that can help and support you. And I just wish I would have done that way quicker and way sooner.
For me, I my natural personality is to set really aggressive goals and want to achieve them always. And in a startup, you're learning so much, and there's so many different variables that come at you. I wish I would have known and really internalized, because everyone told me, all my mentors told me, like, it always takes us twice as long as you think it's going to take. And I'm like, no, like, maybe just for you, but not for me. But it does. And so setting those expectations for yourself and being patient, I wish I would have told myself that, because now I finally, 2 years into it, have internalized that, and I still set super aggressive goals, but I'm much more realistic about it now, because when I first experienced this over the summer, and I didn't meet a really hard goal that I set for myself, and I went into a mini depression for a week. Not like a bad one, but I was just like, why does the world suck? But it was because I didn't meet this. Yeah. But it's because I didn't meet this goal, and I couldn't figure out why I was so down, but I realized it was because I didn't meet this goal. And so just being patient with myself and realizing it does really take twice as long usually as I would think it would.
Thanks. Any other questions? Can I hold on to them? I got a few more here. Oh, go ahead.
So we've talked about you being women, but what about being in San Diego versus Silicon Valley or the East Coast? Like, how, and this I guess goes for anyone, good or bad or not an issue?
I make trips quite frequently to Santa Monica, LA. I go up to the Bay Area. Skype is amazing. I'm always talking to people in New York and West Coast, so you're always connected. But I'm a San Diego girl, born and raised, only moved away to Hawaii so I could surf more and enjoy the sunshine, and then came back. But I think you can do a lot in this town, and I think there's a lot to be explored, and there's lots of great resources to connect into. So
yeah, I agree. I think amazing companies who've proven that you can stay here was like GUI early on, being funded through AOL. Take Lessons, who's a local startup getting $6 million in funding, and they're still headquartered here. The owner of Open Candy is a friend and a neighbor, and they're funded through Google Ventures and recently Intuit, and they're still in San Diego. Bandsintown was acquired by a huge international conglomerate, and they're still headquartered here.
Not conglomerate, but
sorry, yeah.
They're international.
International. So I think it's totally possible.
That's good. That was actually one of my questions. Do you think San Diego is a great place for entrepreneurs? So, I mean, I think it is. I think the weather is great. Coming from the Northeast, you just get angry. You get angry. What I've learned about the West Coast, East Coast sort of thing, and venture capital, and a lot of things that I've been through is that the East Coast tends to hold on to stuff. If you look at Wang, or I'm dating myself on companies that started there, but it was always a family thing. It would be handed down. There was no exit. The West Coast, Silicon Valley was always, I got a great idea, exit strategy, I'm going to come up with another. Serial entrepreneurialism is huge in Silicon Valley and the West Coast. I think the East Coast is more, they hold it a little bit tighter. But I think San Diego is a great place for it. I didn't really know that because I still think technology companies were kind of separated. If it hadn't been for some great people to bring you guys together, you can go to events around here, but once you start meeting a lot more people, then you really start getting into it. And there's a lot here that I didn't realize, and I'm really enjoying it right now. So
we actually chose to be here. So the company is founded in Boston, and then I met them in DC, and we were at this point where it was like they finished the incubator, and I came on board, and we're like, where do you want to go? And then one of the founders surfs. It's like, why not San Diego? And we weighed a bunch of different options because we're in music, maybe New York or LA, but I think that we specifically chose San Diego because we felt like we could get a good quality of like technical team and developers, but affordable. We were close enough to LA, but not in LA. And I actually think that being in San Diego ended up making a huge difference to our ultimate success because we weren't distracted. There are other startups here, and we were working in the Hive, which is another co-working space, which was great because we were around other people that were in similar positions. But I'd been living in New York right before that, in Brooklyn, and it was like every night there was something amazing going on. And if you didn't go, you felt like you were missing everything that was cool. And like if I had been there, I don't think we would have, if we had been there as a company, I don't think we would have been able to just buckle down and focus. And I think that focus is what helped us to see that we needed to pivot and then gave us the energy to go through that whole process. So I think being here is a huge plus. And also I have to say the weather makes a huge difference. On those days that you just want to pull your hair out and then you step outside and you're like, it's gorgeous. And there's palm trees. And life is really okay, and I'm pretty damn lucky.
At Sweet Labs, we are making huge efforts to recruit developers and engineers from up north down to San Diego. In December, we organized an event. It was called 10 by 100 by 100. 10 startups from San Diego, $100 million in funding, 100 new jobs. We felt like we could bring in a lot of tech talent if we pulled together. So not just Sweet Labs, but inviting StockTwits, inviting Take Lessons, inviting 10 other companies to this event so that we can really bring in a lot of people. And we had 200 job seekers attend this event, and it was very, very successful. And we really wanted to bring the awareness to people that there is a San Diego tech startup community, and we're building it here. But we really need to try and get the people from the Silicon Valley down here. And so we have really strong recruiting efforts because we have a lot of job openings. So please check out our website if you're looking.
I was just in San Francisco on Sunday, and it was cold and rainy, and it really sucked. And I was so happy to come back to San Diego. So I love it up there. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot going on here.
Yeah,
so.
it's building. It's growing.
The weather really, Alexis, you're right. The weather really does make it. It's like you walk out the door, it's like, oh, look, oranges. What resources have you found in San Diego? Especially, is anyone here thinking of starting, has an app in mind, wants to start their own company, whether it's tech related or anything? Anyone here who's at that point right now that's looking for resources, that's looking for, hey, that's good to know. what are some of the resources? I know you said, and one of my first things I always say to everybody, get a good accountant, get a great attorney, outsource your payroll. Those are some of the big things that I've always said. Don't take it, focus on your business. You know, you're the only one that knows your business really well to sell it, to market it, to promote it. Those are the things you should be doing. Let the other people do the rest of the stuff. It's not as much money as you think. What are some of the other resources in San Diego that you found, whether it's companies or individuals or, you know, what do you think, Alexis?
First, like great co-working spaces can make a tremendous difference just to be a part of a community. And then I also have to say finding other people that you connect with. Mel and I actually met through another friend who's an entrepreneur. She's amazing. Her name's Jessica Valenzuela. Maven Digital on Twitter if you guys want to follow her. She's an incredible person, and she told me, oh, I have a friend in San Diego, and it turned out it was Mel, and she had the desk next to me at the co-working space that we were at.
True story.
So, and we've kept in touch ever since, and there's another woman, and we meet, you know, on a, I'd say bi-monthly basis, to just grab coffee and, you know, just chat about what's going on in our different business lives. And I think that having a community that you can connect with, both in terms of your workspace and then in terms of people you can also kind of like exhale with, but get what's going on in your work life, can just make a huge difference. I know that that's not a recommendation for an accountant or anything, but I do think that sort of thing that does make a big difference when you're launching.
Sure, absolutely. Anyone else?
I'd say the Founders Institute.
That's right, you were the Founders
yeah,
Institute. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Anyone ever heard of the Founders Institute by chance?
Yeah, it's an amazing program. The way it's set up, it's a 4-month accelerator program, and you apply, you go through it, it's pretty intense. But the resources that my company has gotten out of it and the mentorship that we've gotten out of it has been amazing. Like Chester, one of the founders of Open Candy, or Sweet Labs, they changed their name, is one of my mentors. The people who have built amazing companies that are venture-backed, we have not just access to companies and mentors in town, but also all over the globe. People who have built and sold $150 million companies are the type of people who are mentoring us. And have helped open up doors that we've been able to bring on new partners. We're going to be announcing a new partnership next month or maybe shortly thereafter with a great new partner in our space that's going to help us build a database of, well, bring in about 4,000 or so new products. The only way we would have gotten this partnership was because we had credibility as a graduate of the Founders Institute and were able to get the introductions. So that my co-founder is part of the CTO forum up in LA, which is pretty not accessible to early startups, but because of my connections through the Institute, it really gives you a good sense of what it is to create a tech startup and access to amazing people
Sure.
who have built, sold companies, some people who have built, sold, and also had companies that failed, but then they just tell you their lessons learned, so you learn from their lessons and you don't have to make those mistakes yourself.
I'm in the Startup Leadership Program right now, and is Barbara still here? She's a mentor in our program. They're getting ready to recruit for the next session. I was telling Alexis on the way here. Amazing fellows, there's 27 of us. It's the second time here in San Diego. It was started in Boston. It's also in Silicon Valley and international, so you get the community of all the fellows. There's probably like 200 plus of us. It's completely exceeded my expectations from what I was thinking it was going to be like going in. We come from all walks of life. There's a lot of, I didn't go to grad school and I don't have a PhD, but these people are just brilliant. From
You got a PhD in life, though.
In beer drinking. Startup Leadership Program has been phenomenal. We're done in another month or so and we'll graduate. Recently, because of that, I was invited to pitch a really well-known VC a few weeks ago. We've been exchanging emails, and I was sharing with Alexis, and she was just blown away. And she said, "How did that happen?" And they said, "Startup Leadership Program."
Excellent.
Evo Nexus, we haven't started yet. We move in on Monday. It's the downtown location. They evaluated 100 plus companies. Adrianna and I were 2 of the 10 companies accepted. We're all 2 and 3 person teams. We could be there from anywhere to 9 months to a year and a half.
That's fantastic.
And so we're excited to keep you guys all updated on that. I know that they're still accepting applications. And so Kevin Hell, who's one of the lead directors who sits on the board of DivX, has said that they believe, they haven't been proven otherwise, that it's the first incubator in the country that comes with no strings attached. They don't take equity in your company. We get free office space, mentorship. They want to grow us from 3-person companies to 20-person companies, and help us grow and/or fundraise, like whichever path you choose, basically.
Sweet, congratulations. That's awesome. I want to wrap it up in a little while here. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, and by the way, if you have a business card, here, throw it in here. Pass it around, throw it in. Love to have your email.
I wanted to know what the biggest sacrifice you've made in this process. I realize you guys are making a lot of sacrifices, have made a lot of sacrifices, and will continue to make sacrifices, whether it's personal or more on the business side. What do you feel like the biggest sacrifice is that you've made?
I would have to say my biggest sacrifice. So the one thing that we all have that we can't get back is time. And when you're in a startup, and I was really resonating with what you said earlier, is that you put so much into your startup and time, and it does become all-consuming. So I know that personally, a lot of my relationships with friends changed, and you start entering this world where you're just talking tech and talking shop, and your friends start to change and shift. And so that was hard for me personally, because I had friends that I was friends with, like best friends with, since I was a little girl. And then we started to not really have anything in common, because I'm talking about like IPOs for $300 million, and they're talking about their children. And that's amazing, but our lives just took different paths. And so for me, it was personally, I sacrificed relationships, which was hard. And so now I'm really personally looking at how do I start making those connections. And then also like trying to have a relationship with people, it just doesn't work. Didn't work for me, because you're thinking about your startup, and it's hard to make that balance, and trying to find someone who actually understands what you're doing and is also supportive of that. So for me, it was interpersonal relationships, and just working at that, making sure you balance that and take time for the people who are important in your life.
Yep, same thing. I've missed 30th birthday parties, important wedding anniversaries, like really, let's get choked up talking about it. Really important dates of friends and family in the last year that we were traveling for, a business meeting, an event that was really important for our company. Yeah, it's tough. Thanks for asking that question. Yeah, I mean, same thing. It's, when your best friend calls and says, oh, I'm having a celebration for this big birthday or this big something in my life, and you have to say, I can't make it. Yeah.
And our founders at Sweet Labs, I know that the sacrifices that they've made, so as an employee, what I can do is just go to work every day and put my best effort forward and, do great work for them because of the sacrifices that they made. I'll trust that.
I'm going to right now.
There are there's a lot of different ways you can measure this. I think that part of me is so fulfilled in it now that it's hard for me to think of these things as sacrifices. But if I had to name one, moving across the country, leaving my entire social fabric. My family was very close to them. And then on top of that, moving and working as hard as we were working made it really hard to connect with people in general, because who are you going to meet when you're just like nose to the ground all day, every day? So luckily that's something that I think one of the things I feel very lucky about is that the co-founders of the company of Bandsintown, they always had balance. One of them serves, the other makes music, another guy makes music, and they all really helped, they know how intense I can be, and so they really helped me to find that balance. which was wonderful. But I do think that the social sacrifice, particularly the one that came with moving, was a really tough one to make. But in retrospect, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. And one thing I want to mention related to sacrifices, though, is that if you really love what you do and you love your customers and feel like you're bringing them a lot of value, it's amazing what you're willing to sacrifice in order to make that happen. I mean, every single thing that comes into our our feedback box, I get excited because even if it's like a baby band or something, I know that this is something that's important to them, and I'm making something that's going to help make them more successful. And so I think whatever you're doing, if you see that value in it, then you can get through any of this stuff. I mean, sacrifices happen, but it's really about like finding something that you really believe in, like the impact and knowing that you're directing people towards a less impactful way of shopping. I mean, you're willing to do a lot in order to bring that to fruition, that vision. So I think that plays a lot.
My advice would be, if the other person in your life is involved in tech and startups, it's been very easy for 9 years. A younger man is always much nicer. But I've always, I'm of the thing where it was so impactful at the time, and like you said, after it doesn't seem like it, but at the time it was tough. And sometimes people aren't willing to go over that thing, and I mean, you know, doing a startup and putting your money into it and asking for money and all these other things that are really, really hard, it's a risk. It's not an easy thing to do, but the best plan, and there's plenty of resources. And I'm sure these ladies, you know, if you send them an email or get a hold of them, I'm sure they'll be willing to help out. But I have a question for you guys. I'm going to wrap it up with this last thing. I'm very much into the whole mentor, pay a forward, you know, all that sort of thing, because I really believe that we have another generation coming on up, but we still have people in this, you know, we still have people who really need help. What are the things that you would like to do in the next year to have an impact on a woman? They don't have to necessarily be going into tech, but it's more of a woman issue. What would you be, you know, do you go out and speak to women's groups? Do you talk to kids at the high school level, which I do a lot, or women's groups and stuff like that? What do you feel is that you're going to do in this next year to get more women into tech, or just get more women in entrepreneurs, actually, what I was going to say. Not that you're not busy enough. I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I know that I'm always trying to go to networking events, tech startup events, just to talk to the women, because I know how valuable specifically the Founders Institute program has been for me and my company and my team, just to share that resource with people. I think one thing that we've been very blessed to have amazing mentors and advisors really just take me under their wing and our company. So we have a culture where I really look to my team to also find their mentors and help open up doors to have that happen. So I know, regardless of who it is, man or woman, to find that. I'm also going to be starting to volunteer with a low-income youth program, low-income at-risk youth who are looking to go into college, and people from different backgrounds, and going to talk to them about tech and startups and it possibly being an opportunity for them. Just being a Hispanic woman myself, and going into these communities, it's a good way to connect and show people that there's other opportunities out there. So we really try to do a lot of stuff. Kevin, my co-founder, is really involved in the community as well. So
excellent.
So I've been trying to get an organization chapter down here in San Diego called Women 2.0.
All right.
They were founded in San Francisco. We're working hard with, I saw her in here, Miss Felina, with the chapter chair in the Bay Area, and we're working on our first sponsorship to bring Founders Friday here to San Diego with Women 2.0. So we're very excited about that.
I like to go back to my university and talk to the marketing group there, and also I'm in a women's volunteer organization, the Junior League of San Diego. So we reach out to the community, and we put in hours and partner with various organizations, and one of them is the Girl Scouts. So it's been nice to have an impact there and see the girls and help with their programs. And they can earn a tech badge now. So.
Guys,
Cool.
really? Yeah, I posted that. That was awesome.
First of all, just accessibility, you know, trying to participate in things like this, not just to speak at them, but to learn and make connections. And I think it was actually the parallel connections that have been as powerful to me as mentors, just people that you can be on the ride with. I think we learn a lot from each other. I was a dance teacher for quite a long time, and I learned that a lot of women don't have a lot of compassion for their bodies, and so because they're so hard on themselves, they take that into everywhere in their life. And so as a dance teacher, I tried very hard to just teach them for that hour that they were in dance class with me to just chill out and have fun. And I found that made them, when they would come back, they would have stories about all kinds of things, bonuses that they've gotten, things that they've done with their kids, like the way that their husband looked at them differently. I mean, who knows? Sure. But that sense of compassion and just being a little bit more at peace really made a difference everywhere. So I'm quite interested in getting back into teaching dance now that I have a little bit more breathing room to not be quite so nose to the ground on this.
Seriously, I mean, what guy complains about being bald and has a pot belly? It's a woman thing sometimes, but.
And we carry it with us, and we don't need to. So.
Exactly. I guess we'll wrap it up. I think the ladies are going to stay for a little bit longer. They have to get home, but if you have any other questions or would like to talk to them, I want to thank everybody. It was Wesley and Ben and all those guys. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for coming tonight. I think this was a great start for doing more things like this. I thank you guys so much. I only had met Adrianna once or twice before, so these are all my new friends, and I'm really excited. So, and you are too. Thanks so much, and